Okay. All right, looks like we're largely here. Welcome, everybody. I'm gonna call this meeting to order. We are recording, and the video will be posted on the SWNI website.
And then do I have to announce too, I'm also recording, right, Sylvia, before the meeting starts?
Yeah. Right. And we'll talk about digital recording later in the meeting. So welcome. I know we've all been watching the impeachment hearings and or the impeachment process. I'm not going to comment on it, but I'm sure you guys will afterwards. Because every time I think we're going to have a light agenda, it turns out we have a very full agenda. So I'm going to go to that. So I need for people to approve the agenda. I need a motion to approve the agenda. Any changes, revisions, additions to it?
So motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All right. Mary Pat moved to approve the agenda and Steve seconded it. I'm also going to slow down a little bit tonight, even though our new secretary has been phenomenal. I want her to know that she can call out and say, wait, where are we? Because sometimes I forget that there's recording going on. All right, so we have a motion and a second on approving the agenda. All in favor of approving the agenda? Say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? All right? I don't think I missed anybody. And you know, for people that are on the side, it's often hard for me to see you. So waggle if you're sitting on the side and you want to talk, wave your paper because I tend to be looking out this way and I tend to not look down so much. That would be very helpful. All right, let's go ahead and do our introductions. We'll start with Ron here.
Ron Durian, Neighborhood Association.
Sonia Bogert, Executive Director for Southwest Neighborhoods.
George Brown is Far Southwest.
Catherine Bailey, Arnold Creek.
Janet Hawkins, Secretary.
Steve Molnax, Parks and Community Centers Committee.
Robert Lennox, South Burlingame Neighborhood Association.
Jackie Phillips, Homestead Neighborhood Association.
Mary Pat Hensel, Schools Committee.
Fran Laird from Collinsview.
Dylan Lasan, Hayhurst.
Murphy Terrell, Watershed Committee.
Maria T. Mai, Multnomah.
Bruce Kester, Ash Creek. Hey, thank you, whoever brought this.
Yes, thank you.
Nancy Seaton, Swirl.
Tom Gornick, South Portland.
Gary Rundy, Land Use.
Becky Leatherquist from Bride Mile.
Catherine Christensen, I'm a Vice President.
Leslie Hammond, I'm your SWNI president. And let's go to the back. We have 4 people sitting back there. Will you introduce yourselves?
I'm Sharon Keese, staff for Southwest Neighborhoods. I'm filming.
Marie Tyval, Hillsdale Neighborhood Association, and I'm filming.
Peter Johnson, Far Southwest. Sam Pearson.
Good. Okay, well, I'm sorry you guys can't, you're from Far Southwest too? Oh, right, I know who you are. All right, well, welcome. Welcome to all of the people sitting in the back as well as here. I always try to welcome people that I think are just guests sitting in, and for a minute I wasn't thinking about who you were. Okay, now I know. All right, the next thing on the agenda is minutes. They've been up for at least 10 days. I think you've had a chance to look at all of them and read them through. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes? Gary, are you?
Yes.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, do we have any additions, anything, changes to the minutes? All right. All in favor of the minutes as written, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Janet, we have Steve Molnax next to you, Rob next to him,
Rob Lennox.
Dylan Lazan.
I mean, I want to ask Janet, can I ask the neighborhood to approve it, but Janet wrote it and she's part of our neighborhood association.
I
You
don't
see
see
what I
any
mean?
reason why not.
So can I be in favor of it since I
Yes.
go to my neighborhood and
Yes,
ask?
you can, all right.
Can we approve it?
Any other abstentions? We have Nancy Seaton wasn't here, and then your name is Sir
Tom Gornick.
Gornick?
Gornick.
Gornick, all right.
G-O-R-N-I-C.
Tom Gornick, who's from South
Portland.
Portland, right. Okay, those are all abstentions.
Okay, one more. I wasn't there.
Katie Daly, all right, from Arnold Creek. Any votes against the minutes as written? Okay, minutes are approved. So we'll go on to the executive committee report. I have quite a few things. I always try to be brief, but it's hard to do sometimes. Let's talk about Commissioner Yu Daly. She was invited by Multnomah, and she came, I think, last Tuesday to listen to questions from the Multnomah neighborhood. She was given time to present, but she decided not to present. So we had a lot of questions. The Multnomah neighborhood was gracious and welcoming, and asked some very pointed questions about where she stood on things. And I would say that she is, a couple things you should know. The record on her original code revision is open until January 9th. So if you want to send any comments in on her proposal, you can do that you should do it by January 9th. On January 9th, they're going to have the remainder of the 35 people who didn't get to testify come in and testify before City Council. I don't think anything's changed. Her code revision, I don't believe it's going to be voted on or approved. However, she does have a new resolution, and buried in that resolution is a proviso that says she wants to review the coalitions. She did comment in the meeting that she thought too much money was being wasted on coalitions, and she'd like to reconstruct what coalitions look like. So we hadn't really had any explanation of what this new resolution was going to look like. We heard more about it when she was there. In addition, the resolution says that there'll be a year period in which the bureaus meet and talk about, I think, similar kinds of notices and who gets notices and sort of cross-cultural notices. It's a very vague kind of phrase. And so people said to her, look, you have this set up for a year with no input from the public. And she said, I don't think we need input for the public. And she was challenged on that several times. And then Winta, who works for her, said, the Bureau doesn't want any public input while they're formulating what they want to do. They want to have their own meetings. They can't do it if you have public input. And at the end of a year, they'll devise a system for public input at that point. There's a lot of pushback on that because she's doing exactly what she did before, which is not including people in the process. And she answered all the questions that were asked of her, and I think there's a recording that we're fortunate to get from Bill Gallagher, and so her whole speech was recorded. It was about 45, 50 minutes. Yes.
Bill Gallagher of?
Of the Southwest Connection. Yeah. So there is a possibility you can look at it, listen to it yourself and hear it, and I'm sure that Bill's going to report it in the January paper. So that's what I would say. I think I didn't have the sense that she felt like she had made any mistakes on her code revision in terms of public engagement or her goal or anything. I think she's going to continue to go right down the road that she's been going down. Questions whether the other commissioners agree with her and will support her.
Leslie.
Yeah.
So the other thing I would like to say, and Sylvia can speak better to this, that I submitted, I was secretary for that meeting, and I handed in my notes to Sylvia, and Sylvia, what will happen with those notes?
You mean the minutes? They'll
Yes.
go up on the Multnomah neighborhood website.
So what I handed in was not a verbatim, but the question and answer.
Good.
So, but it's not perfect, it's not verbatim, I'm not a machine, but I think that I got the gist of it. So I just wanted to say that the Q&As will be up on our website.
And then there's a little shorter version in the newspaper article.
There you
from
go.
Multnomah.
Okay, I just wanted to put that in because about the notes. That's it, that's all.
Murphy had a question that she'd been working on for a couple of days that she was going to ask, and I looked over at her as I was calling on different people and making sure everybody got to ask a question and making sure that we didn't have one person who would ask a question, get a second question before anybody else. It was Murphy. I thought about
It was
asking
in the
Murphy what her
zone.
question was, but she was having to take all these notes, and I finally didn't call on you because she was busily recording everything that was going on. It was a very good meeting, actually. Let's move on to the
Oh, Bruce.
Oh,
Oh, yeah,
sorry,
quick
Bruce.
question.
Go ahead.
Now, I think it was last time, a flow chart was passed out the steps, is that still in place? So it'll be 3 years from now that they'll make a decision? I think it was 3 years, what it is, 2 years perhaps?
I don't think it's 3 years from now. I think what, at least at this point, and the city council hasn't voted on it, so we don't really know. You know, it has to come up, it has to be discussed, there has to be a work session, that
So
kind of thing.
that flow chart was just a suggestion, that's
It
not.
was a suggestion, and also I heard I heard her say, either before the meeting or sort of under the radar, that they're in the process of rewriting that resolution, and it's gonna be redone, which is supposed to come out, I think, after the first of the year. So it was just it was a placeholder, I guess, for her on these issues, yes,
So she said somewhere around January 18th.
okay.
That there should be more information coming forth. And I think what she was trying to do, and her staff assistant made this more clear, in my opinion, than what I had heard from her, that the process is, we work on what we think needs to be done internally. We submit it, the staff submits it to the bureaus, the bureau thinks about it, discusses whatever. It goes to the council kicks it around the block. It goes back to the bureau and the staff. At that time, public is invited to come in. And then the revision happens again. So.
Are you talking about the revision of the resolutions that she's offering?
Correct.
Okay.
In terms of public participation. So first in-house,
Right.
then to the commission, then to the public, then in-house, then to the commission.
Okay, all right. Yes, Mary
So
Beth.
I was under the impression when we met last that, we knew we would probably have funding for 3 years. Is that part of what has to go?
That's a great question. The answer is the resolution includes a provision that says that the coalitions will have funding for 3 years. And when she was asked a question at the Multnomah meeting, she sort of hemmed and hawed and said, well, maybe 2, maybe 3 years, it isn't clear. But it's already in the resolution, which she has put forward. So we believe that we'll get 3 years of funding, if not more. But you should know all 7 coalitions asked for a 5-year contract instead of a 3-year contract.
6 now? 6?
That's right.
6 coalitions?
Is it 6?
7.
7.
There are 5 nonprofit coalitions, and there are 2 city offices. And the 2 city offices, part of Civic Life's action plan this year for 1920, is to make those, move them out of the city office and into nonprofit. I don't know where they're at in that process.
And I thought that she said, and I paraphrase myself, I thought that she said that they put 2 coalitions together.
That is part of her thinking process about that long line of timeline that she's sharing, is that she wants to change the model for the coalitions. And so I think at the Multnomah meeting, one thing that was revealed is her thinking that she might combine them. But we haven't gotten any kind of.
Oh, so it's not a confirmation, it's a wish list, not an
It's
absolute.
a her
Exactly.
I
thinking
understand,
process.
thank
So-
you.
Yeah, that's true. All right, the second thing on the agenda is a recommendation regarding a CPA to do our 990s. All of the information for the 990s has been done, so we need to select somebody who will do it. Sylvia, why don't you read out the names and the bids that came from?
Okay, so we've had Leslie Clark as our CPA since 2010 and helping us to prepare the 990 tax forms. And then the finance committee went out and sought 2 additional bids for this year. The one Miranda Scott with Polly Rogers and Company in Tigard, who does a lot of nonprofit taxes for nonprofit organizations, came in at a bid with $1,150. And then Charlie Van Rossen with Schmidt and Company, certified public accountants, also submitted a bid of $2,000.
Not to exceed 2,000.
Not to exceed $2,000. So the finance committee reviewed this and they
Leslie
thought,
Clark had a bid of $2,500.
no, actually it was $2,775 last year, so that's
Okay.
what it cost.
All right.
Okay, so then the finance committee reviewed, they felt that because Charlie has extensive knowledge about our organization and how we're set up, it would go a lot faster even than the lower bid, but certainly they had confidence in the second bid, but their recommendation was for Charlie Van Rossen.
So I need a motion to approve somebody to do the 990s. Of these three people, we have Leslie Clark, who's done it in the past, we have Charlie Van Rossen, who's been working on our financials for a year and a half, and we have actually a firm that Charlie suggested to us, it's called Rogers and Polly, they're out in Tiger, they have a very good reputation. So,
So the finance committee recommended Charlie.
yeah.
And what were the bids again? Or,
So it's on my report, if you look on page 14,
thank you.
and it says 990 tax.
Thank
So Leslie Clark last year charged us $2,775. She's been doing it since 2010. And then Miranda Scott with Polly Rogers and Company is $1,150. And then Charlie's firm was $2,000,
Not to exceed 2,000.
not to exceed.
The reason I say that is,
Yeah, the other one is an estimate.
right,
So,
right, exactly. And also because he knows things so well, he might be able to do it faster.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm wondering, does anyone see a conflict of interest, hiring Charlie? That's one thing, and then, so now I'm hearing, there was a guesstimate, an estimate on
it was an
the-
estimated bid of $1,150.
Well, what does that mean, estimated bid?
It means that we showed her our 990 reports, we told her what we submit in terms of information, what they would need to do, and then they came back with this estimate. They were very quick.
So does that, but we didn't get an NTE,
No, but
so it's not really an estimate. I mean, it's not really a dollar amount we can count on.
Well, I wouldn't say that, because I talked to her personally, and I told her what we were trying to do, and Sylvia sent her the pro forma, what it should look like, and what we were expecting from it. She looked at it, and she came right back, I think on the same day or the next day, and said, we can do this for this amount of money. That's the way I read what she was saying.
Okay. So does anybody see a conflict with Charlie? I mean, would there be a conflict of interest?
Yeah, I have the same question. Was Charlie on the finance committee making this decision and reviewing it?
No, he wasn't.
no, he's resigned.
Oh, so you just did this in the last 30 days?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's been maybe 60 days.
Yeah, he was not, in fact, he said, you know, if you get a lower bid, take it. So, I mean, he's not trying to argue for this.
I just wanted to bring that
Yeah,
up in case
no,
there
I
is
think
any
it's a good point.
problem with the program.
One of the things that surprises me is, I mean, that's a pretty significant difference from 2775 down to 1150. So in my opinion, you'd have to assume that it could be at least a bit more than 1150 if, I mean, just, I mean, going into it, you'd have to say,
It could
wow,
be.
how could it be that much more last year?
I don't have an answer for that.
Okay.
That's-
Charlie's bid is the only bid that has a cap, correct?
Yes.
Did you request,
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Yes,
did
Katie?
you request a cap from the other person, or?
No, I tried to keep it open. When we went to Rogers and Polly, I said, we have these 990s to do, we'll send you a copy of them, give us your bid as what you think it would take, what you would charge us for them. I didn't put any caps on them, I didn't put any fields, floors on anything, I just let them bid. And so they came back right away and bid that. Charlie bid what he bid, and I think he's doing it from actually understanding what's in the financials and what it will take to pull all the information to go into the 990s, and then Leslie's done it in the past, so she has a good idea. So, I need a motion. George.
I move that we choose Charlie.
All right, do we have a second for, selecting, second, all right. Rob?
I would just say that we really don't have a clear understanding of what each bid is if they're all bidding on different things. If
They
you
are
have
all
not-
bidding in different things.
Could you let me speak, please? So you have three bids. One of them is not to exceed, the other one is an estimate. The third one, I guess, is a based on last year's performance. why can't we go to each one of them and ask for a estimate and a not to exceed amount? So that way we're actually comparing apples to apples.
Okay, I'd like to respond to that. The reason, we've been waiting for these to be done for about 3 or 4 months, and all these people are gonna start into their tax season. So the reason we brought this to you this month is if we could select somebody this month, they have a chance to get it done in January, say up to mid-February, before tax season happens, and then accountants really don't want to spend too much time on 990s because they're doing work for all their clients. So that's why we did it this way. Okay, we have a first and second. Any other comments on this process? George?
I just think that it's clear that Charlie knows what he's about, because he knows the system here, and he can probably do it so that it would actually cost him less than he's charging us, which is fine. I mean, they're supposed to be able to make whatever charge they need. So I would just go with someone who's gonna give us we can get rid of this problem quickly, smoothly, and easily, without going through trying to get apples and apples. They're not that far apart. And we're not talking about really big money. We're going from 2,700 down to a little over 1,000. So it's not, they're not really fancy apples.
Okay, any other comments? Yes, sir.
I just note that the two people, one did it last year, Leslie Clark, has done it, so she knows what she's in for. Charlie knows it. The one who has the lowest bid doesn't know it, and that worries me.
That's true. Any other comments? All right, I'm gonna call for the vote. We have a motion to approve Charlie Van Rossen to do our 990s. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Okay. Okay,
Yeah,
Bruce wants to
abstain.
abstain. And you want to abstain? Okay, all right. Rob?
Abstaining.
Oh, he's abstaining, okay, fine. So we have 3 abstentions. We have Rob, and we have
Murphy and
we have
Bruce.
Okay.
And Katie over there.
Okay, I think the motion passes. Let's move on to the treasurer. Let me tell you what I did. I made a number of phone calls to the neighborhoods for people that had either showed some financial acumen or had been treasurers or had showed some interest in the treasury process. And we have some very good people, but they're pre-committed and they can't come in mid-year. So we've been a month and a half without a treasurer, and so as a consequence, what I'd like to recommend to all of you is that we appoint Lee Bueller, who was our treasurer for 5, 8 years, something like that, and does know our system, on an interim basis until I can find somebody else to propose to you as a permanent person until we have spring elections. But I felt that it would be a good idea to have someone in this role performing the functions that we've had in the past and not wait until I can actually find somebody to say yes. Because there are some good people I think that will run next spring, but they aren't available right now. So that's why I'm proposing that Lee Bueller be appointed as interim treasurer. He had a Christmas plan to go to Mexico, so he's not here to talk to you, but most of you, I think, know him. Does anybody want to ask any questions about him? Because we certainly have people who would speak up. Okay. All right, I need a motion to approve Lee Bueller as our interim.
Oh, I've got a question, sorry. Well, you go first.
I was gonna make the motion.
Oh, sorry.
You wanna wait until I make the motion to discuss?
Whatever.
Or do you?
All right, go ahead.
Go ahead, Marie.
Oh, well, yeah, I was hoping to talk to Lee tonight about his experience and the other roles he's played at SWNI, to hear from him directly. So I'm not comfortable even considering someone who's not here and available to answer questions.
You have you're moving.
I'm
and you have
moving
a second?
to, appoint Lee Bueller as interim treasurer.
Do we have a second for that? Okay, Becky?
I'll second.
All right. Does anybody want to speak on Lee's behalf and talk about what your experience of him was in the past? He's actually the treasurer for Southwest Trails right now, so he's actually in the function of being a treasurer for another neighborhood association.
Could Sam speak, because he was treasurer under Sam, wasn't he?
Sam, would you like to speak?
He's very qualified, knows the system, and when we had our problem financially back several years ago, he did quite an extensive study to determine how much money was taken, where everything went, and he put the system back together. So I would say he has all the qualities and qualifications necessary to perform admirably for SWNI.
Okay, any other comments from people? Katie?
I have a question that begs the question, what do you mean money was taken?
So it's really no secret, there were, in 2010, we had a staff person that embezzled money. And so we filed charges for us. There was sentencing, we rebuilt the entire organization.
And Lee was treasurer,
No,
but he
No.
was brought in after to
Right,
fix it?
Yes.
exactly,
Okay.
yeah. Does that help you, Marie?
Oh, no, I would want Lee here. I'm not,
Okay,
that doesn't address my issue, no.
okay, any other questions? All right, I'm gonna call, we're gonna go ahead with a vote on the motion to appoint Lee. All in favor of approving Lee Bueller, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
And those,
That was Robert.
just
Sorry, it was Rob,
Yeah.
as a name, and
we
Marie.
have, Rob and Marie are voting against. Anybody else? All right. The motion passes and Lee will be here at the next meeting.
Abstentions.
Oh, excuse me, I thought I did this. Abstentions?
Murphy and
Murphy
Katie.
and Katie.
Murphy and Katie.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Janet, have we given you all the
I
information
think
you
I
need?
got it, thank you.
All right, good, all right. Good. All right, then, the next thing on the agenda is the vice president's report. John's wife had surgery, and so, and she seems to be coming along well, but, he's with her tonight, and so he could not be here to do his report. But Catherine would like to talk on the subject that he was going to.
Normally I'd talk even better, but I was in Hawaii this last week, so hence the flavors.
Right.
And you like them all.
Thank you.
But I did get to attend a couple of meetings during the time I was here since our last meeting. One of them was the Capital Highway Improvement Meeting, and Murphy will help me out here. TPC was there, and I'm sure there's another face or two that was there. There was about 40 people attending, 35 of which I think all live along Capital Highway. There was a few exceptions, but on the whole, it was the folks that are immediately being affected by that construction project. And I would say that meeting was the smoothest meeting I've been to, and I think Steve Zigethy from PBOT has to be thanked. He is probably the most
I
calm,
understand you, can you speak out?
collected person there is, that can run a meeting, and he did a lovely job. Sure. They are gonna be starting tree removal, I think it was February, perhaps even January, as early as January, but this coming year, along Capital Highway.
The project is gonna start in January-ish.
Yes, and they're doing that at this time partly because the birds that nest
Yes.
in the trees are not being disturbed as much by.
They're not they're not nesting
here.
at this time.
They're south, I think they're south
Yeah,
right now.
they're
so-
not nesting at this time, so they can do it for an ecological reason. There's times that they can remove trees and brush, not during nesting seasons, of which there are 2 nesting seasons in this area. So they can remove them, and then they can't remove them, and then they can remove them again, and then they also can't remove them again.
Yes, so they're actually gonna be doing it. They have definitely selected the contractor who I.
Yes.
Can't remember off the top of my
I
head.
don't know right now.
Forum or something like that. Anyway, they were present and they discussed the project and how they're moving forward. And they had a woman from a consulting firm as the interface between neighbors and the concerns of anybody around here, not just neighbors, and that project. So
A liaison.
she introduced herself and gave us her information to contact her. They told us, one of the main things I heard was that all of the walls. The retaining walls will be stamped concrete walls, which are slightly more expensive, I think, than the block sort of styles that they often use, are not nearly as attractive, but also require a much bigger footprint at the base of them, so they expect to have smaller, thinner walls. Yes,
Except for there's going to be one or two that are some gravity blocks that are somewhat like, well, they are like the ones that are on Vermont that are ugly, but they promise not to make them shiny like that. But most all of them are going to be poured in place concretes. And it's going to be that rubble sort of texture, kind of.
Kind of look like rock,
Yeah,
stacked rock,
they're
stacked rock
supposed
looking.
stacked rock, so it sort of goes along with stacked rock walls that we have.
Yeah, and they guaranteed again, I think they have the profiles now of every block on their webpage. I haven't looked at them, but most of them are going to be consistent with the standard. There were a few exceptions in there, I believe primarily to get around trees that we wanted to maintain in place. There are no longer any retaining facilities for water in the road or on the sidewalks or anywhere.
We're not gonna have roadside swales.
Right, yay. They're all gonna be shipped off to three or four different facilities, and they discussed.
Murphy's our watershed. She's giving you some details here.
The one, they just did discuss and how it would look, the one along, there's actually two along Multnomah, but one of them they were covering a little bit more in depth.
Yeah, the reason why they're not doing the roadside swales similar to Multnomah Boulevard is because, similar to Multnomah Boulevard, they don't work very well over here. The people who live along Capitol Highway would have to be, there were responsibilities, it's difficult for driving. It's mostly difficult for bicyclists because the bicycle lane would come and go and come and go and come and go, and then there'd be a tree in your face. So the idea is that it would be safest, smartest, and most secure to not have those facilities, but to convey the water into holding or retention facilities for filtering and then further release into the water system.
And then the last thing I remember was that one of the things we learned is that ODOT or PDOT cannot use like the gas taxes to fund art projects. So they're identifying, I think it's 2 locations along the 1 mile stretch for potential art, but there's gonna be further information flowing about what that looks like or what it might be, and it might be grants or artists around here that can.
And there's a local Native American artist who lives in Multnomah Village who is interested, or at least in conversation, about doing artwork at one or both of those places if those places are designated. So a lot of ifs, but yes.
That was the
Nice.
Meeting, I think, summary, and it was really a good meeting. The other thing that I have been reading about is that there is a commitment by ODOT to replace the I-5 overpass over 26th Street. And with that, they are not planning on changing any of the entrance or exit ramps, which are none there. So the idea that some have had that maybe shutting down the entrance onto I-5 going south at the crossroads might move to the 26th is not on ODOT's radar still. Although there's certainly a lot of people that think that might be a really good idea, but not their plans.
If it's not on their radar, should it be put on the radar?
It has been suggested by everybody. So I don't know if you could be successful, but there's been a lot of people trying.
And very articulate people trying to get them to look at it differently.
And
Questions for Catherine? Raise your card, please. Oh, thank you, George.
What will happen with the white bollards? Are they staying there, the
I
white
have
poles?
heard that PBOT's happy with them. I'm not sure if you have specific ones that you have in mind.
Well, I'd like to see them gone, I thought, one of the few things that I agree with Commissioner Daly about is maybe paint things red. Maybe the red paint would be more noticeable. so that we know where the bicycle lanes were and the rest without the bollards. I just think the bollards seem like a kind of hazard myself. But, we're having, Far Southwest will be having someone named Ms. Rickles. Who
He's
is,
gonna come speak to you.
yeah, she is the, sort of the chief of this set, the job, this project. So she will come and talk with you.
Bruce?
What webpage should these be viewed on, is it ODOT or PBOT or?
Or, sorry, which project?
Is this,
Southwest Capitol Highway
Yeah.
Project is on the PBOT page. I just, I'll tell you, I have a cheat on my computer, so maybe I have it quick, but I just put in Southwest Capitol Highway Project, PBOT, and Google brings it right up.
okay, thank you.
And I think if you go on PBOT's website, they have a little, question thing and use technical highway project.
And his name is Bruce, is Steve Sigathy, but it's the only capital project that's ongoing now. All the other ones are done with, so it's not to be, wait, I'm not sure which capital highway. There's only one that's alive right now.
Okay, so it's Capitol Highway and go to PBOT.
Go to PBOT
Yeah.
and look for Southwest Capitol Highway Project. But you could also Google the other way around, Southwest Capitol Highway Project, PBOT, and it should pop up.
Okay, Sylvia would like to
Sorry,
comment on
there.
this.
Sylvia.
So there's a front page article in the paper that's an open house for this project on January 30th. It has the web address, everything is in there. So I recommend you go to the open house.
Would you say in January 30th?
January 30th, it'll be on your front page of your January newspaper.
And I think we have it listed down here too, right?
Yep.
Yep, that got added.
Any other questions for Catherine? Becky?
Yeah, the poles on Beaverton Hillsdale at the best stops. Several of the drivers don't like that because it cuts them off too short, and trying to get to the passengers to get the people to get on and then trying to get back out on Beaverton. It's already narrow lanes and there's been several of them hit. Are they up for a short period or is it just a?
No, I believe those are there until they invest
So you're not all that.
differently, but yes, I've seen a semi go one after another.
George, do you have another?
I'm sure people will figure their way out.
I have a fun fact. Anna's hummingbirds do not migrate, and their nesting season is October to June. So if they're cutting down any oaks or sycamores or big vines, they nest in the same nest every year, and they usually have 4 clutches per year. So just take care of your hummingbirds so they've got a place to go.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Murphy?
So I don't think there are any oaks, but sycamores I don't know about. And let them know, I've got 5 feeders out, and I'm only 2 blocks off. Come on
out
over.
an email.
If this project is funded by ODOT, which it is, I'm sure there's ODOT money involved, they have to do federal stuff, so they will have a biologist going through and looking at the trees and identifying that type
All
of
those
stuff.
little tiny nests.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
they have had a naturalist go through
They're good at
to
it.
identify, yeah.
Cool.
Okay. Thank you very much. We're going to go to Sylvia's report now.
Okay, so I think I'm doing the treasurer's report.
Let's do the treasury report first.
So it's in your packet, and if you look at the balance sheet on page 8, so you're looking at the first column there under November, and the Umpqua operations account has $131,031.91. Your Umpqua restricted accounts, which is the neighborhood association accounts, and sponsorship projects, at $86,255.92. Your accounts receivable there is $6,000. That's 1 month of Bureau of Environmental Services for the Watershed Resource Center at about $5,700, and then there's an ad invoice that's out for about $300. So that's what that is. The credit card is up a little bit, that $24.41. And that's mainly for the stormwater projects that happened in November, and also Watershed Resource Center had a couple of restoration projects, so a lot of that is plants, all paid for. And then we, of course, had our spring cleanup. So the spring, or fall.
Are we out there yet?
We're heading towards spring. But the fall cleanup, and you could see that on that report too. We spent right, in November, it's showing at like $582, but there was another, fee that came in December, so we're right around $1,000 for expenses under our Bureau of Planning and Sustainability grant, which leaves us with a little over $2,000 for the spring event. So all of this is in my report, if you wanna read that. The only other thing that I think you would notice under that report too, is that we're a little over on our expenses for rent, and that's because the Art Center is going to raise the rent for our extra space that we pay for like this room and all of our committee meetings and neighborhoods and auditorium events like our emergency preparedness fair and candidates forum. So we are booking everything in advance that I can through the rest of the year. So we're a little off on our projected, but we'll be within our budget.
But we're
So-
saving money by doing it, by prepaying it, for paying this year's fees,
Yeah.
because next year the fees are gonna be higher. So we decided to prepay, the finance committee decided to prepay as much as they could going now, so that we get the benefit of the lower prices.
It's a fiscal year of July 1st through June 30th. So, does anybody have any questions?
I do, Sylvia.
Okay.
And it might be my stupidity, so please forgive me. It looks like at the year end, previous year end, and where we are currently, the 227 versus the 183,000 at the bottom,
Uh-huh.
the total liabilities and equity. Looks like we'll be way ahead.
Saying sheet 9.
And again, this has to do with our advance that we get from Civic Life.
So, the 227 is expected to go down?
Yeah.
Rather than, okay.
Because we'll repay it.
Okay, got it.
And it was a little
Thank
bit
you.
higher than last time. The other thing is that we got our full funding for the cleanup money, and usually that's a reimbursable, and they
Okay.
gave us the full 3,000 in advance.
All right.
We also had that stormwater grant for Southwest 50th Street, so we had extra money coming in this
Okay.
time, so we'll move it over.
Any other questions, Marie?
So, the increase that we're gonna incur for next year, is that an annual increase that happens for the center?
No, they haven't done this for a long time.
And you're gonna do that for just small
You may
moments?
understand that Parks is under
Right, is that,
pressure.
but did they do that for all the facilities or just Multnomah, do you know? The art center?
The Art Center it's unique, it's its own building, but the tenant rate for extra space is what's going up. So I have to say, we pay very minimum when we
Yeah.
rent our rooms out, like what, $18 an hour or something like that. It's not very much, but, so they hiked it up just a little bit, but for us, every dollar counts, so I'm booking anything I can in advance.
Okay. I was just curious if it was just an annual inflation increase or what that
No,
was about.
that's built into our lease for our office space, but this was the extra space, so. And I don't think they've raised it in years, so.
Just because I've been doing this for 3 years now, and watching what the city's doing, if the coalitions were to be revised or go away or not be funded, the fees that we pay for you to have meetings that we know about, the money wouldn't be there for those necessarily, if it was changed or if they decided to fund us in a different way. So one of the services that SWNI provides is reserving those rooms and paying for those rooms so that you guys can use them for your different projects, which is important, as we all know. All right, any other questions on financials? All right, then Sylvia, is there anything on your report that
Yes.
you want to call out?
I just want to call out, under neighborhood small grant, so John Tapera is staffing that, and we have some wonderful folks lined up to be on the small grant selection committee, so Jane Ellie is her name, who's works at Stevens Creek Crossing, has agreed to be on the selection committee. If something came up for that site, she could, just abstain. The other person is Leah Kloss, who lives in Hillsdale, and she's been a community organizer, works a lot with different parts of grants, very knowledgeable person. And then Numi is with Home Forward at the Main Central Office, and this is a new position, and she's working with business owners and residential, and so this is a perfect fit for her to introduce herself to our community, so we thought that was a good fit. Janet Hawkins from Hayhurst, Steve Molinex, and then Leslie Pohl, who was, works for formerly Portland Parks and Recreation and Community Gardens, and is very familiar with the neighborhood small grant process. So I just wanted to, I think we have to kind of nod approval of these folks, and they will be reviewing all of the neighborhood small grants. The deadline is Monday, January 13th at 5 o'clock. And then they'll make their decision so that we can announce them mid-February.
And last but not least, the mayor's program for February.
Well, do we have a nod? Are there any objections for these names? Anybody?
Okay.
Well, they'll recuse themselves if.
Yes.
Yeah.
And any, same thing with any neighborhood grant that goes for it, they'd have to recuse themselves. Okay. All right, and then I've been working with the mayor's office. He wants to come out and do a community conversation about homelessness. And he wants to go to each of the areas because he knows the areas are different and that we have different issues to address. So the first date he picked was like the first Thursday, and that conflicted with public safety and our parks committee meeting, but these are issues that both those committees discuss, and so they were willing to give up their night. However, now they've switched it and they moved it to Saturday, February 8th at 3 p.m. in the auditorium.
So change the date on your
So
agenda.
it might be, is it wrong number?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But
It's 6 instead of the 8.
Saturday the 8th.
Yes,
Yeah.
Saturday the 8.
It should be Saturday the 8th.
On
And I'm sorry, it just kept moving. It's a moving target.
What do you mean by area? The mayor wants to come to different areas?
Yes, so he was gonna try to go to each of the 7 district coalition areas. I think he might only make 5, but he wants to make sure.
I hear
Because
you.
in Southwest, we're very different. We have homeless populations that living under tree canopies, affect environmental areas. We have homeless families living in their cars in the back of the center, at PCC. A lot of them are just unseen. And last year, we had a couple of deaths because this population goes unseen and therefore they're not being reached out and connected to some of the services. We lack social service providers in Southwest. Neighborhood House and Meals on Wheels are probably some of the only 2 that I have that I know about. And therefore, a lot of what we do depends on other nonprofits helping Neighborhood House, doing that Southwest Hope, Feed the Hungry, a lot of those issues. That's the kind of topics that we want to address at this forum. What's unique to Southwest? What are some of the issues around that?
So,
Murphy, you have another question?
yes, please. Just to clarify for me, so can the Sears complex be used for homeless like it was a couple of years ago when it was extra cold?
So that was an emergency that they utilized, but now it's folks are in there, and in fact, there was something going on there today.
The city is using
Yeah.
it too much, is what you're saying?
Well, it's in a completely different place than where it was
I
many
see.
years ago.
I
So when it was used as a Sears building, there was a Facebook page of folks that went down there every single day, provided meals and clothing, and so I shared that with the mayor's office. But these are the types of issues that we will be talking about.
Thank you.
Okay, we're on time, everybody, which is good. And we're gonna move on to committee reports. The first report will be from Steve Molinex on Parks and Community Centers.
Yeah, on the 26th of November, Parks brought back there was a city council work session, of a couple of hours to address this long-term sustainability of parks and the associated funding problems. Okay, of course, you all know what happened in the last budget year with pretty drastic cuts being applied, and then that has led to this focus on getting those funding sources to be adequate and stable. And so that workstation was addressed to those questions. I attended online rather than driving downtown. Very well attended, the room was full, and another 80 or so people watching online. And by the way, that session, a video of that session is available, and along with the slides that Parks used to present that session. And did John give you those?
Yeah, it's on the agenda. If you just go to the SWNI Parks page, there's a link there.
Oh, okay. I hope you can find it from that. Anyway, so if you're interested in that, it's probably the easiest way is just to review the slides. If you want to see the conversation that went on around it, then it's probably going to take you an hour plus to watch the video as well. It's a tall hill we have to climb. They presented 3 possible service levels that they're very general. Okay, one is to let the system decline, and that means taking some facilities out of service as their maintenance needs are not met and so forth, safety concerns. The second scenario is to maintain current service levels. Third is to fulfill the specified service levels. And either, okay, essentially to decline, it means a flat budget, okay? And to maintain or fulfill the service levels, maintain current service levels, is a substantial increase in the funding that they have available now. And to fulfill the projected service levels is a much larger increase. Okay, some of the problems that go along with this, I think it's important to note that there's a lot of equity issues. Walking distance to playgrounds, walking distance to community centers, cost barriers, tree canopy, safety barriers, those are all much worse than they are. They're worse on the east side than they are in the different parts of the city. So not only do they have the question of how much funding is required, but they also have to address these equity issues. They did present several possibilities for funding options, including a special district, a tax on essentially restaurant meals, a tax on or cell phones, I should say, a couple of others. And none of it was popular, but everybody seemed to agree that a regressive tax system would be a very bad thing. Okay. Anyway, they all have their pluses and minuses, and there's more discussion to happen around those. Everybody pretty much rejected the let's let the system decline scenario, so that's really not an option they're considering. But then they have to find funding for either of the scenarios. We discussed it in the Parks Committee and will continue to do so. And I think we're going to try and get a letter to them probably in late January. They know we're here. We submitted a letter just saying thank you for including us, that we reiterated what was in a previous letter that this board approved. And they did acknowledge during the session the receipt of that letter.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah, sure.
I'm not a guru on parks at all, but I've learned a couple of things. One is that we're short on funding for actually paying for staff to actually keep those centers open. That's one of the problems we have. And the other one is our infrastructure has declined in many places, so we have a real need for improving the infrastructure. Can you talk just briefly about what kinds of fundraising could be used for either of those needs?
I think I would probably mess up if I tried to address that question. So, but I would say that there is an issue with respect to capital funding. They have it's like, what do they call them, service charges, or, on new construction. What is it called?
SDCs.
Yeah. So those there's restrictions on what those can be used for. They could be used to build a new swimming pool, but they can't be used to repair an existing swimming pool. Okay, so there's some issues there, and this is all in a tangle that I'm not sure they understand, and I certainly don't completely understand it. And also, the other thing to mention is that there is a substantial, if the number I recall is correct, it's something like $400 to $500 million maintenance backlog, okay? So, that means that all of the stuff that we use every day in parks is wearing out. And, someday will, worst case, fall down, or they have to be taken out of service. And those large numbers of maintenance backlog is something they have to deal with, they can't use the service charges to do it. So other than that, I really would recommend, if you want to look a little more into this, that you go through the slides from that presentation. I saw a question over here.
I was just wondering what the timeline was that they had in mind for coming to a conclusion on the direction they're.
They weren't real specific about that. They never said, okay, we're going to have another meeting in 2 months, so I guess we're just going to have to pay attention. Right.
Was there any discussion about public-private partnerships to do anything with any of the parks?
There always is that out there. I don't think they've used it in a lot of circumstances already, okay? I don't recall that being on their list of things that was going to make a big dent in this problem.
I was actually thinking of things like, naming options for some of the big corporations or something that then would allow funding to come in, not necessarily just individuals, but more maybe corporate.
No, I understand what
Okay.
you're saying, but
Yeah, okay.
I still think those are kind of marginal as far as having an important impact on the size of the problem. Yeah.
Okay, any other questions for Steve? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it. Becky?
Yeah, Sylvia, this is for you. Is it February the 8th or February the 6th for the mayor's meeting?
Saturday, February 8th.
Okay.
Good. Dave Martin isn't here tonight. Is somebody here stepping in to talk about transportation for him? All right, we'll skip the transportation report. Is somebody here for public safety? Okay.
I mean, I can,
Would you like to
the
give
big
us
thing
some-
there is that the neighborhood emergency fair is scheduled again. It's on a Sunday, but it's March 8th. And that will be here, and that's what they'll be discussing at the next meeting. And then also they're gonna be talking about the Neighborhood Watch / Neighbors Together program. And the commissioner was just interviewed on Think Out Loud, and so the committee wants some time to digest what they heard, so.
Thank you. That's a big help. All right, the next person on our agenda is land use.
Okay, so we prepared a motion, and we apologize for the short publication of this motion, because we talked about having these things ready well ahead of time. Problem is, this meeting moved itself up a whole week on us, so last night we held our normally scheduled SWNI Land Use Committee meeting. And the motion is very brief, and it doesn't have a lot of background in it, because it would basically require going into great detail about House Bill 2001, 2003, and Senate Bill 534. All of them that were passed this spring, late spring, in our biennial legislation session. So The residential infill project has been working its way through BPS and help me out here.
Portland Planning Commission.
Yeah, the Planning and Sustainability Commission. And in May, it made it finally out of the Planning and Sustainability Commission by a narrow 5-4 vote. And the reason was very, very obvious, straightforward, was there was concern about displacement, or just call it what it is, gentrification. If you allow development to suddenly, take on and move up, into residential neighborhoods without a lot of careful thinking. So they put together that anti-displacement action plan, and right now it's nothing more than a mission statement. They have put out a map, so the residential infill project, you all can go on and look at your neighborhood, and you'll see purple and you'll see yellow. Purple is just where you would expect any pragmatic person to not want you to come out in your neighborhood and build triplexes or fourplexes, up and down the street. The yellow area is the Housing Opportunity Initiative, or RIP. That's the famous middle housing that the project got started with a long time ago. And so all of us have large swaths of yellow painted across our respective neighborhood associations. And the residential infill project management team, this December 11th, this past Wednesday, December 11th, took the project to City Council for the first time as a workshop. And I went there in person and listened, and they were challenged with a lot of questions and concerns about the project, and all of what in the minds of each individual commissioner believes the project should deliver. Our Amanda Fritz, who hails from our area, is looking for the project to try and mimic our good old comprehensive plan 2035, which would tend to take those yellow areas on our maps and erase perhaps some of the yellow until you get a little closer to the natural transit corridors and the definite known and named town centers. So, given all that, the residential infill project team is looking and going, well, we've got HB 2001 at our back. There's a little problem, and I wrote about it in our last newsletter here in December, is, the legislation is just broad-based statements. There's a lot of detail that has to get drawn up, and so there is a administrative rules team working away at this with what's it stand for? Residential Advisory Committee?
Right.
Overseeing it, so there's
25 to 27 people. It's at LCDC, and their
Oh, it's at the
Administrative
state
Rulemaking Advisory Committee.
I'm sorry, rulemaking, so I get caught up in the acronyms that I write about it. Okay, so so if you go in and you look at their approved agenda on their first kickoff meeting, they state that this is going to require very complex and detailed rulemaking, because it's all about land use and land use planning and producing a housing production schedule. So right in there and admitted that the schedule is aggressive, fall of 2020 for completion, 10 big working meetings scheduled throughout, but it's complex. So let's go back to this past Wednesday, December 11th, there were still some people from the project team muttering about bringing this project back to City Hall this April for final approval. And so over the holiday season, it's open for public comment until January 15th and 16th, when you can testify in public down at City Hall. So there's some folks of the mindset that you know, we're just gonna get all that public comment at City Hall meeting, and somehow, from January out to April, all things are gonna get settled. And we see that as a non-starter, and so a simple motion was slow down, wait until the rulemaking committees are done with their work, and before you even think about bringing this thing back to City Hall. They've got a lot of other work to do. Like I said, their anti-displacement action plan is nothing more than a mission statement. There's no meat to it. So I rest my case.
So before we take up the motion, are there questions for Gary? Mayor Cap?
Are you just asking for a letter to be written from SWNI?
Bruce?
That's a couple questions. Who are they?
The residential infill,
Is that a committee?
it's a project team from Bureau of Planning and Services.
Okay. And then the other, this map, now how do you go about to get that? I think you told me where, so I forget.
You go to BPS, and Google BPS Portland, their website will pop right up. On the left-hand column, they'll residential infill, and there'll be a map app.
Okay, then, now, the yellow is changes that are proposed, is that correct? And
Yellow is where their proposal at the moment is to allow a quadplex, up to a quadplex.
Do they explain the color code on the thing?
Yeah, there's a legend.
Now, you can get the whole booklet there, Bruce. You can get the residential infill project. There'll be a whole series of pages that you can read through all about the project there.
Bruce, here's the latest copy from the city.
I guess, and Steve, I'll get to you in a minute. I would like to state, for the record, it's been almost 2 years ago, we came to SWNI board with a motion that said, we are not in opposition to the residential infill project. We are not, at least, and this board, not every member is in the same place here, but we approved it, that language. We said we simply did not approve it as it was currently planned and laid out. And that's really what we're still doing. We're waiting to see what the rules are, such that we as citizens and neighborhood associations can understand how the last and final engagement will work with coming up with the yellow, kind of said, like I said, see if there's any chance of modifying some of the yellow mapping on our respective neighborhoods. So again, we are not in outright opposition of this project.
Steve?
Simply.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, Steve, no, go ahead.
Yeah, there's a wording problem here. It's pretty simple. I think you mean to say that you move that the Portland City Council postpone evaluation of the residential infill project?
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay. But I had also a
So
question.
are you making that as an amendment? We
I
don't
would
have a
suggest
motion
that,
yet.
I would suggest that as an amendment.
We don't have a motion yet.
Yes, we do. This motion comes from committee.
I know that, but we haven't put it on the table yet, because he's been explaining it. So are you ready for me to read the motion, and then we'll have a discussion about it?
Okay.
All right, the motion is to move that, and they are asking for a letter, although it doesn't say that we write a letter that the Portland City Council, to include Steve's language, postpone the evaluation of the residential infill project until after the administrative rules for House Bill 2001, House Bill 2003, and Senate Bill 534, which were passed in the 2019 legislative session, have been finalized, and their impact on Portland residential zoning is known. Okay, yeah, further questions, amendments? All right, let's vote on the motion. All in favor of this motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Okay, good, all right. Thank you. Do we have anybody here that's going to speak for the Equity and Inclusion Committee?
They meet on Monday.
All right, so nobody's here for
I
that.
would like to
Although-
say
go
one
ahead, Mary
thing
Beth.
about equity and inclusion. I've attended a number of the Oregon Humanities sessions that Equity and Inclusion has been putting on, and I just want to make a big plug for them. They are amazing, an amazing way to get to know other people in the community. It's people that you don't normally see that are coming out for these conversations, including some young people that are just getting out of college, trying to figure out where they want to fit in and how they want to plug in. Also people that are recently retired. And the facilitators are always, every facilitator that we've had has been just really good at what they do. The way they allow for confidentiality in the room, the way they ask you to frame things when you leave the room. And so I can't say enough for them, and also for us as a board, to encourage people to come, either come with you to one of them this year, make arrangements with people, but definitely to let the neighborhoods know that these are going on. They're pretty amazing sessions.
And the next one is February 20th.
I would just like to underscore what Mary Pat said. I attended the last one, and she was the only person from this board that I saw there and recognized. And I went with my next door neighbor that same day that huge fire was in Lake Oswego, which was 4 blocks from our house, so we stayed, but we were tense. In any event, it did start a conversation with my neighbor, and we brought in other neighbors to talk about it because it gave us some real food to self-examine and points of view that I would have never come up with in a vacuum.
Great.
So yeah, it's great. I recommend them.
And it's non-threatening, it's just so
Yeah.
I went to and was really impressed with the quality of the conversations, the sort of direction from the leader, the comments that people were making, the willingness to search within their own thinking about what they were thinking, how they might think differently. Was excellent. It was really good. It's called the Oregon Humanities Conversations. And the next one is February 20th, and it's called Beyond Invitation, How Do We Create Inclusive Communities? I believe it's in the evening?
Yeah,
Is that
7
right?
o'clock,
Here
here
this
this
year. Yeah. So we invite you all to come. We had 4 last year, and now we've gotten one in December of this year, so.
We're doing 4 again this year.
We're doing 4 again, yeah, all right. Good.
Full of conversation.
All right, so we're on to the exciting world of watershed.
Oh, all right, everybody get in here and get your feet wet in watershed, that's what I have to say, okay. No drowning allowed, George. Okay. So, we're still in the process of working through a thing that's called, Portland's MS4 permit, which is permission from the state, which is permission from the feds. MS4 means municipal separate stormwater sewer system. That's the 4S, okay? And the whole of the city is under one permit, and we're trying to evaluate how the permit works in terms of Southwest, because we have different issues, as we know, than Northeast, for example, do. So we want the city we want to have not a carve out, but an understanding of our special needs. And it's a long process, it's very thick, it's really over my head, it's very complicated, so if anybody wants to wonk out on it, we've got lots of room in the committee to come and talk, I assure you. We want to be treated separately, differently from the rest of the city because we have different needs. And we are examining the permit in regards to how Southwest should be treated. So let's see, the next thing, so our meetings are the 3rd Thursday, which is tomorrow night in this room at 7 o'clock. And the point 2 is the BES, and that's Environmental Services, has recently updated the creeks inventory. And to that end, an update of the E-zone environmental and the C-zone conservation maps, which can be found now online at BES. It's an easy to use map, you put in an address, you look at the map, and you see where the creeks are in your neighborhood as if you didn't know. But the nice thing about it is that if you feel as though you have a secret creek that's not listed on the map, please let them know. And why do we care? Well, generally speaking, building and conservation issues, that's pretty obvious, but also landslide, flooding, etc. You remember a couple of years ago at Terwilliger how the house slid down the hill. So these are things that we need to be attentive of, and because we have probably 4 times as many creeks now on the map as what we had last year, which was a 10-year-old map. So we've been updated, okay? And that adds to even more information to why it's important to think about the MS4 project, because 10 years ago they thought we had 5 creeks, now we see that we have 100 creeks. It makes a difference. Point 3 is Westside Watershed Resource Center ended the season with a very successful Stormwater Star projects and are planning projects for the 2020 season with projects in spring and fall. And if you know that you have Eric Holgren, who runs it, is in Sylvia SWNI office, so that's where you can find him if he's in there at that moment. Yeah, which right now he is, but during working season, not so much. Okay, so if you're interested or know of a place that you think would be a good idea to have stormwater, either like a restoration or assistance, it could be a private home, it could be a public place. There are a variety of frames that Eric works in. Talk with Eric and he'll tell you if it's a good site or not a good site. It goes through an approval process. I'm not involved with it. I can't help you. I have no power. I can't get my own place done. So let Eric at the SWNI office know if you have a site in mind. There is an approval process. Volunteers are always welcome. That's a muddy boots and rain or shine sort of situation. And if you need a project for school kids, either your own school kids or school kids that you're in charge of schools, Eric has these kinds of projects and he's there and he wants you to contact him, that's for sure. And point 4 is anyone in your neighborhood is having stormwater issues, since we've had a very dry year this year, but something's coming up this weekend. Neighbors having stormwater issues or difficulty getting through the appropriate office in the city, maybe our committee can help you. We have something that's called SWIFT program, which is the Southwest Information, and we can help you find the right person and be sure that your needs are being heard, and that's part of one of the many things that we do. So please don't grind your teeth alone, let us help you grind your teeth. And we are lacking a few representatives from different neighborhoods. So if there's anyone in your neighborhood that's interested at all, please light a fire under their tush to come on down. We have some brainiacs there, and we have some engineers, and we have just some plain Joes like me there, so everybody's welcome. You don't have to be a smarty pants to be in our group, we don't mind. And so to remind you, it's the 3rd Thursday of every month, and so this month it's tomorrow here in this room. And please remember that the watershed belongs to all of us, and we're all in it here together, right? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Martha. Bruce?
I have a question.
Sir.
So you said somebody has a stormwater problem, they can go to you. How do they go to you?
Well, they can come to our meeting, or they can ask Sylvia for what my email address is, and they will have to come to the committee to talk with us about what their issue is.
So basically come to the stormwater meeting.
I think that that's the best idea. But if they're not able to do that, they can contact Sylvia, or they can go see the map.
Oh, okay.
The newspaper, and I have a column in there every month.
Okay.
All right?
Thank you.
Certainly, my pleasure.
Yeah, Murphy,
Yes, Becky.
I live in a housing project in
Yes.
Fallow Creek.
Uh-huh.
has flooded our backyard almost every year.
Uh-huh, good for you.
No, not good, because it comes right up under our deck, under
Yeah.
our foundation.
Yes.
I was wondering, is there anyone in your office that could come out and see what we could do about building a better side wall?
That's a good question. My easy answer is no. But what we can do for you is, if you are having difficulty getting through to the correct people or bureau or office in the city, if you get a runaround, we are here to help you stop the runaround. So if you know what your problem is, and you know that you can't get through to the city happily, perhaps we can help smooth the way more successfully for you, and then stand out of the way for the two of you to be able to talk together.
Because,
Well, we ain't got no power.
because I'm not the only one. There's a neighbor next to
Yeah.
us that gets flooded every year on
Yeah, yeah.
his property.
Uh-huh.
And our manager just doesn't seem, or doesn't know how.
Uh-huh.
And if I could give her the person's name at the watershed for her to contact, or have Home Forward contact them, because it's like every year it comes up.
I will give you the watershed chair's email address. Can you write that down?
Yeah,
Are you ready?
yeah.
Here you go. Watershed, one word, -chair
Okay.
at SWNI.org. And it's in the newspaper in my column.
And it's on the website.
It's on the website. Okay? So you can go to the SWNI website, and on the left-hand side it says where the committees are. You can go there, and that'll link you through to me. You can ask Sylvia, all right? But it's in the newspaper, and have your person, if they need to have help on trying to find the right person at the city, that we can help you do. But we have no power.
Right,
We're just a conduit.
right.
Okay,
Thanks, Murphy.
Thanks, Murphy.
you're welcome.
All right, we're gonna go on to Mary Pat.
So I have just a handful of things to report tonight for Schools Committee. The first item that I'm actually quite delighted about is that we were able to use the SWNI website to move a Code Squad website. And so for the 2018 project and the 2019 project, which were both small grant projects, up on the school's website now is actually the projects that the students did through the Jackson Middle School SUN program coding work that was part of the small grant that we wrote. It's quite nice because these live, and we can use the links from those to be able to show people at least a small grants project of what actually is, the kids are actually saying. It's not what we're saying, it's actually that the person that was the instructor last year and this year took the information and captured it in a way that's quite exciting. I don't have the newest site link to give you, but we'll get it to you so you have it for the next time and everybody can take a look. But that was just, came to me by email this afternoon, so I wanted to make sure that we let everybody know about that. It used to be housed separately on a different domain, and so now it's really nice to have it up on the SWNI site. The next information is, I had told you that there was going to be some demolition of the Smith Elementary Annex section. Right now that is stuck someplace at the city level, and so the facilities people from Portland Public Schools are trying to work that out. If I get any additional information, I will let everyone know. I'm really closely connected in with some of the families and parents at Ash Creek, but also really now we've met 3 or 4 times with the Portland Public Schools facilities people. So we're trying to stay on track with knowing what's going on with Smith. The idea is to take down the annex section that was put up in like 1974 because it has so many leaks and it's has mold issues. It's just got a whole bunch of different issues. And so then if it actually gets to a 2020 ballot measure, there would be some option of what might happen at Smith going forward. So those are two items. Another item is Robert Gray Middle School has a new principal. Her name is Molly Chun. She has been at Robert Gray for something like, 14 days or something like that, so not that long. Beth Madison is actually over at the district, and Molly, I think, came out of retirement to be able to take this half year as an interim, and they'll be looking for a new principal there. She has experience at Boise Elliott and also at Hockley Green and some of the other schools that are on the east side, and is really interested in storytelling and being able to get people to tell the story better about what goes on in this community. And so for the first time, she got one of our newspapers, and I opened it to the schools page so she knows we exist now, and got a chance to meet her last night at a very wonderful session that Robert Gray Middle School, an affinity group of brown and black parents put together, and it was at Stevens Creek Crossing. It was a very open, brave space for people to be able to come together and talk. There were probably 32 or 33 people there. There were maybe 5 or 6 people from Portland Public Schools, and a lot of other parents coming. And I will tell you, it was one of those meetings that we don't get to very often, where people really opened up, and because there was a great facilitator or a couple of good facilitators there, really shared their innermost feelings about fear for their children of color in the community, and how many of us don't even realize what they are concerned about on a daily basis when the kids are coming, to a stop sign in their car and their young drivers, or a host of other things. And I will tell you, it was good to be there. The one thing that I also want to mention is one of the things that the schools said is, we can't do everything. There's lots of video. You're going to have to continue to take action yourself as well. But do know that we're working on things with some assemblies, trying to get student voices, and shifting some things up. So that's Robert Gray. The other thing that just came up today is that there's a whole issue with getting students safely to Jackson Middle School, and some of the issues with no sidewalks. And one of the school buses actually ran through a crosswalk today, and a student was not hit, but there's video footage of this. And so I bring it to your attention that we are trying to really make sure that getting kids to school safely is something that in Southwest can happen readily. And I think Markham Neighborhood Association will continue to take that on, but I just wanted to make sure that people here are aware that it's an issue. Pedestrian safety is an issue in general, and then getting to the schools is a big issue. That's what I have.
Don't you want to announce the changes in the leadership?
I will. Our next meeting is January 16th. And the change that Leslie is letting you know about is we are gonna move, probably for the remainder of this fiscal year for SWNI, to what's gonna be called a rotating leadership person. And so right now we know who's gonna be leading. Patty McMahon's gonna lead in January. And then the idea is that person will do January, February, and then Matt Rosenberg's gonna lead in March, April, and then May, June, Scott McLean is gonna lead. These are all people who have been regulars in attending things at schools committee meetings. And instead of being able to identify one individual, it's gonna be a rotation. January, I will definitely be there. And there's another event that I will work on for March called Roll Up Your Sleeves for Schools. And aside from that, it's the way that I've been trying to transition, and we finally came up with an approach that we believe will work.
And Mary Pat tried to resign a year ago, if you all remember. So now I think we've got a way to continue to support the school's interaction with us and us with them. But Mary Pat can step back and be less busy than she's been with school activities. Okay, and that means that what we'll see, yes, go ahead, Dylan.
Thank you for your work. Janet and some of the Hayhurst Neighborhood Association is gonna be hosting a safety vigil for the school children back to school, January 6th, I believe, is when they all go back to school, at 8 a.m. right before- 7, 8 a.m.
Oh, good to know.
On Vermont, and it will be Vermont and 45th, and I believe they're also gonna coordinate with the Montessori school.
We have, yeah, we've got.
And Hayhurst.
And those are the kinds of pieces of information that people can feed the schools committee, and we can post that information on the Facebook too. So, you know, please don't
Send you the flyer.
Yeah, please don't shy back. Send the flyer, we can take a picture of it, we can get it up in a JPEG, it works really well, so, thank you, thank you.
Okay,
Leslie, Becky?
yes.
Some other questions?
Becky.
Mary Pat, have the schools that you've known, ever had any problems with bullying?
Oh, of course, of course.
And, cause I've been hearing a lot of this on TV with Phil, Dr. Phil, about, suicides. Has the schools come up with any classroom time during their schedules to talk to the kids, to let them know, hey, if you have a problem, talk to your kid friends, or if you have a problem, come to us on suicides or bullying or anything like that?
So people in here may know better than I know, but I know that the schools do have counselors. I know that over at Robert Gray, there were several, one of the counselors was actually even there at the meeting last night. I'm making an assumption here that that would be the way that some of those issues are handled. But also, I would also feel really confident that there's probably a very special protocol in every one of the schools, whether you're going to Portland Public Schools or Beaverton or any of the schools, on how they address the bullying specifically. And then with the suicide, I don't know if everyone here knows, on a suicide issue, Oregon leads in suicides across the nation with a really high suicide rate. And so that's an area that you know, many professionals, many public health professionals are really trying to help to figure out. And so if there is a particular protocol, I'll make sure that information gets passed on to you, Becky.
Okay.
Bruce.
Yeah, just a quick question about the Smith School demolition.
Yes.
Who's the contact person to find out more about that?
The contact is the fellow who came to the active meeting. His name is Patrick LeBeouf, LEBOEUF.
And who's he with? Is he with Portland Schools?
He's with Portland Public Schools.
LeBeouf?
And he's, LeBeouf, he's facilities. He's been working closely for a while with Dean Smith.
Oh, okay.
He came to at least probably the October meeting of Ash Creek.
Thank you.
Okay.
Leslie, George?
George, go ahead.
Who will represent the schools on the board, at the board?
So the plan right now is whoever's doing it in, they do a two-month tour. So they do the month that they lead the meeting, and then the next month they come to the board meeting.
So it'll be rotating.
It's a rotating.
And one question when you brought up, when you talked about the suicide, are we ranking number one in school suicides or in overall suicides?
Overall.
This is a grim note.
Well, I mean.
No, I'm just, it is. We are out of time, so I have a couple of thoughts. One is I'm gonna give you a quick synopsis of what we're doing for the city council forum that SWNI is proposing to hold for the west side. And the other thing is that I asked for a motion to postpone the discussion about digital recording until next month, when we have a little more time. We'll put it right at the beginning of the agenda. There are several things that need to be discussed with that, and I don't know if we want to stay much longer than we are. To go back to the candidates forum, it's going to be April 23rd. We have had a professor from Portland State University agree to be the moderator for that forum. The League of Women Voters does forums on the east side, and this will be a west side forum for all the people that are running for either city council or for the mayor's office. And right now, there's about 15 people that we've identified that have filed or are going to file. I think there are 13 that have filed and 2 that have not yet, that we're anticipating will file. It'll be, I think, at 6:30 at night, 6:30 to 8:30, so you might want to mark your calendar.
What's the date again?
It's April 23rd.
Thank you.
Yes, and we have 5 people on that committee who volunteered to be on that committee, and for that evening, we're probably gonna need another 5 people to help us both set up and set down and try to make sure that you volunteer for that, you actually get to meet some of the people that actually are running for city council or for the mayor's office. So having said that, we're well on the way, that committee's well on the way. They've already set up 3 dates for a meeting in January, February, and March. So I think we're well organized, we have a good idea of what we'd like to do. And we'll keep putting more information out for all of you to participate in that process. So, given the fact that we're late, do I have? Yes, sir.
On the candidates forum, are you including district attorney's office? They have running 3 people.
We are. Sorry, George. It's a big job just to put on a candidates fair when you have 15 people that are running for the commissioner's places as well as the mayor's office. It's probably more than we can actually do. So do you want to talk?
I will say that the Public Safety Committee has discussed this, and there's a, League of Women Voters and OPD did a special, forum that I can send you a link to those discussions. And the committee felt like every question that could be asked was asked. The other thing, when we have a candidates forum, anybody could come and we could invite them and they won't be given speaking time, but you could discuss with them. That's another option.
What do you mean, like somebody who's running for district?
Yeah, anybody who could, it's a public event, right? So somebody could come, hand out their literature, meet and greet people, but they wouldn't have time on the stage, so that's an option.
We can talk about it.
I mean, the county, we're in the county. I mean, so anything that's county-based, like in normal county, I would think candidates running for that competitive.
It just only so much time.
To get 15 people on the stage in a 2-hour block is a challenge all by itself. But I will talk to you, we'll talk to you more.
Yeah, maybe you can have a second date.
So do I have a motion to postpone the discussion about digital recording until next month? We recorded today, we will record in January. Could I have a motion to postpone this discussion?
I'll make a motion to postpone.
All right, do we have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? All right, now I need that famous motion that comes at the end of every meeting.
I move that we end this meeting.
Sure. All right, is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, Katie's gonna second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, happy holidays to all of you, and thank you so much for coming and giving your time tonight.